Hello, this is Sonny Bostock from Politicomment and welcome to this video. Today we will be breaking down the election results from the 7th of May 2026. So, what were these elections? On the 7th of May, there were elections held in England, Scotland and Wales. That's 3 out of the 4 nations that make up the United Kingdom. In England, the elections were for local councils, and in Scotland and Wales it was for their devolved parliaments. I'll explain what both of those things are later. So, first we'll start off with England. So, let's break down the election results in England. So, what is a council election? So, first of all, a misconception I've seen a lot online is that by voting against Labour in these elections, they were somehow going to get rid of Keir Starmer. Now, even if Keir Starmer does end up resigning, it's not because you voted him out. The elections in England have got absolutely nothing to do with who the Prime Minister is or what party is in charge of the UK. That's not what council elections are for. When you elect a council, you are electing a body for your local area. Now, the councils, they're typically in charge. What you'll mostly see them in charge of doing is collecting bins, creating public parks, filling in potholes, etc. But their most important job is social care. Now, the social care for children is special educational needs, and for adults it's mostly dementia care, although there's obviously other disability needs for adults. Also, there were not nationwide elections. Only certain areas had elections, and within these certain areas only some seats were up for election. For example, only about a third of the seats in the Manchester Council were actually up for election. And when you elect a councillor, they go forward to build your local council. Like how you elect MPs for Parliament, you elect councillors for your council. What are the main conclusions that we can draw from these results? So, Reform UK have obviously smashed the election. They've gained nearly 1,500 councillors, which is more than they were projected to win. They've, by far, they're the biggest talking point out of these elections. Labour are evidently unpopular, and they've lost nearly 1,500 councillors, which is about a 60% reduction in the number of councillors. But they've still come second in terms of councillors won. They are the second largest party in this election. And they've also won the largest number of councils. Now, you might look at there and go, Reform UK have won 1,500 councillors, Labour have lost 1,500 councillors. That means everyone who voted for Labour has now voted for Reform UK. And that's not necessarily true, and we will get into that. The Green Party have actually underperformed, gaining around 400 councillors. That should say 555, I apologise, but they were projected to win 555 councillors. They've only won around 400, which is nothing to be sniffed at, but with how people were discussing the Green Party before this election, you'd be forgiven for assuming they were going to run away with it. The Conservative Party, they're in chaos. Now, for some reason, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, seems to think the Conservatives are performing really well in these elections. They're definitely not. This is one of the worst results for the Conservatives in history. And if they continued with the trends that they have done this year, by 2029, they'd be projected to hold only 1 in 10 councillors, which would make them a minor party. It's not going well for them, and if they want any hope of coming back, they have to sort something serious out. And this is what I was saying, we don't know whose votes have gone to who. We can strongly infer, but we don't know. So as I was saying, Labour have lost about 1,500, Reform have gained about 1,500. That does not mean that all of Labour's voters last year have now gone to Reform UK. Not quite that simple. The most likely result is that a lot of Labour voters have gone to the Green Party, and due to the spoiler effect, which if you watch my last video you'll remember, has allowed Reform to win these seats. But we cannot say what the vote flow is. Though Reform UK have won the most councillors, there's actually some evidence suggesting they may have peaked. This year they're down about 4% from what they won last year, because there were council elections in 2025, and they've actually lost about 4% of voters. So they might have peaked, it's too early for us to say, but there's some evidence that may point towards that conclusion. Why have Labour performed so poorly? So obviously they're unpopular. If you look at the election results, they are not popular. That is the easiest way to say it. And as I said, the spoiler effect will probably have played a large part in this. Labour and the Greens, they are both left-wing parties. Reform are a right-wing party. That means that the left-wing vote is split. A lot of Labour voters will have, in protest, voted for the Green Party, and due to the spoiler effect, their votes have split and Reform have come through the middle. That's a large part of why Reform UK are doing so well in these council elections. Furthermore, Keir Starmer is, out of all the major party leaders, Keir Starmer is by far the most unpopular. And a lot of people associate Labour with Keir Starmer. Even though these council elections had nothing to do with Keir Starmer, they associate Labour equals Keir Starmer equals bad, and they can't bring themselves to vote for Labour, which is what council elections are usually used for. They're usually used in protest, and Keir Starmer's unpopularity is what a lot of people are protesting against. Labour do not broadcast their achievements. If they do something good, and I'm going to use an example I think most of us watching this will agree on, that was a good thing, their creation of Great British Energy, which is an attempt to renationalise energy and take monopoly powers away from companies. They're building huge solar farms, and they've also got free breakfast clubs for children. These are good things the Labour Party have done, and they don't broadcast it. They spend more time bringing down their opponents like Reform and the Greens than they do discussing why they are the party you should vote for. They're trying to become the best of bad options rather than the best option, and that's not a sustainable way to run a party. In history, no Labour government or Labour leader has ever tanked this much support in this amount of time. That has never happened. It's history we are watching. History for the Labour Party and history for British elections. They need to sort something out seriously badly. These council results, will they translate into the 2029 general election? In short, no. No, it will not. Local elections, for one, often have a much smaller voter turnout than general elections. For these local elections in particular, the voter turnout was only around 30%. 70% of the people who could vote didn't. So it's a very small turnout, and out of the people who do come out and vote, a lot of them are older, obviously because they've got more time on their hands, and older people are much more likely to vote for Reform UK. You can look at any form of statistic. Older people vote right-wing, and the main right-wing party is Reform UK, which is why they have won a lot of votes. Furthermore, election results from local elections are very unlikely to translate directly onto a general election. So Sky News put out this. This is based on these election results, what the 2029 House of Commons will look like. Now, trying to predict an election 3 years in the future based on the performance of a party that has been in government for less than 2 years is ridiculous. It is ridiculous to try and say what the outcome of the 2029 general election will be based on local council elections. It's not possible. You can't do it. Now, with how things are going and other data, the likely outcome is a hung parliament, which is what this is where no party wins a majority. That is the most likely outcome. However, what you're seeing on screen right now is based on percentage vote share and how it would go if everyone voted exactly like they did in the local elections in the general election, which never and will not happen. And also, we don't know the extent of the anti-reform vote. In 2029, a lot of people will come out and vote against Reform UK. Not necessarily for a party they want. If you go back to my last video, again, tactical voting, they will vote against Reform UK rather than for the party they want. That happens less in local elections due to the limited voter turnout, but in general elections that will happen, and we don't know to what extent it will happen, so very difficult to try and predict the general election. So, let's now go to Scotland. So these are the Scottish results. So, first I just want to talk about what a devolved parliament is, because in Scotland and Wales they weren't voting for councils, they were voting for devolved parliaments. So, the Parliament for the United Kingdom and England is the one that's based in London, the UK Parliament, who makes laws for the UK and England. However, in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, they have their own devolved governments, which were created in 1999 by Tony Blair's Labour government. Devolved governments are allowed to make certain laws within their nations, such as health, education, transport. Some examples of laws that are specific to these nations. In Scotland, you could get married at 16, whereas in England, you have to be 18. It used to be 16 with parental consent, it's now 18, but in Scotland, it still remains at 16. And in Wales, you're not allowed to spank your child, whereas in England, that is legal, you're allowed to do that. Specifically, the Scottish government, the Scottish devolved government, is slightly more powerful than the Welsh and Northern Irish one. They have powers to create laws on things such as varying tax rates and the justice system in Scotland, which Wales and Northern Ireland do not have the power to do. So out of the three devolved governments, the Scottish is the more powerful one. So what do the results in Scotland mean? Well, as you will have seen, no party won a majority in Scotland. Now, that's not a surprise. The only time since 1999 that there has been a majority in the Scottish government was 2011, and even that was on the border of a majority. It didn't go over the threshold, they got the threshold for a majority. Not winning a majority in Scotland, that's not what's shocking here. The Scottish National Party, which is SNP, they seem to have won because in Scotland there's not really an alternative to Labour or the Conservatives, and when I say they've won because of that, I mean they've won by so much. When you look at previous Scottish elections, it's always SNP win, and then either Labour or the Tories are in a close second place. However, in these elections, the second place seems to have levelled out. There's not a first and second who are miles ahead and then everyone else. It's first are miles ahead, everyone else is levelled out. Now that's pretty spectacular from these elections. And Reform UK and the Green Party, they don't really seem to have broken into Scotland as much as they have Wales and England. That's likely just because Scottish people have a long history of Scottish nationalism and wanting Scottish independence, which obviously neither the Green Party nor Reform UK will advocate for. So they still favour the side of Scottish nationalism. One of the biggest things as well is the fact that the Conservatives were completely wiped out in these elections. So as I said, it's usually SNP first, then Labour or Conservative second. While Labour have also lost a lot of votes, it was nowhere near what the Conservatives lost. They have lost a lot from these Scottish elections, and that is quite a big thing. It shows the massive decline in Conservatives, and no one's started to trust them again. So now let's go to Wales. So these are the Welsh results. So what do the Welsh results mean? In the Welsh devolved government, which is called the Senedd, there's never been a majority. So again, not winning a majority in the Welsh devolved government isn't a surprise. What is a surprise is Labour. Now, in every single election for the Welsh devolved government, Labour have always been the largest party. And this year, they were completely wiped out. I mean, completely. Now, that is huge. Labour always do the best in Wales. That's like one of their strongholds. In general elections, they can always rely on Welsh constituencies. I mean, unprecedented loss of seats for Labour in Wales. They've clearly voted in protest. In England, you see people voting in protest for Reform UK and the Greens. In Wales, they vote for Plaid Cymru, which means the Party of Wales, and they've also, again, gone for Reform UK. That's what local elections are for. People take them as a chance to protest the current government and say, we aren't happy with what you're doing, and we're about to show you we're not happy. So that's what's happened here. What does this mean for Labour? As I say, them losing in Wales is one of the biggest stories from these elections. I mean, I can't quite stress enough how big it is that Labour have performed as badly as they have in Wales. It's huge. As I say, it shows their unpopularity and people's willingness to vote in protest. People aren't protesting by not voting, they are actively voting against Labour to protest. Will the Welsh results be copied in the general election? Will Labour lose their Welsh stronghold in the general election? It's difficult to say, because Welsh people don't really have a history of nationalism and wanting independence, which is what Plaid Cymru won. There's not really a history of that in Wales, so in the devolved elections they have taken the chance to protest Labour. In the general election, will they risk doing that? It's difficult to say. No one knows, and trying to definitively say if this will happen is ridiculous. And you shouldn't try. What are the final conclusions? Well, overall, people have obviously protested against Labour. That's obvious. And that always happens in council elections. People protest against the current government if they are unhappy with them. I mean, protest voting isn't a big story from this election. As I say, protest voting is why they've done badly, combined with low turnout and average age of voters. Labour, they need to switch something up, and it's likely Keir Starmer and everyone around him that needs to be switched. That is the most likely and most probable solution for fixing this. And they've got to do it soon. If they leave it too late, there won't be any time for impact before the 2029 general election. Something has to change, or they run the risk of this being repeated in 2029. And it also shows that every party is unpopular. As much as Reform UK are going to bang on about how many councillors they've won in these elections, there's still 75% of voters who didn't vote for them. Reform UK only won 26% of possible votes, which is, as I say, 4% down from last year. So it just highlights the need for change from first past the post. You've got the media screaming over a party winning 26% of the vote. I mean, does that sound right to you? No, I don't think so. Winning 26% of the vote shouldn't give you the right to brag about being the largest party. It's ridiculous. So, thank you very much for watching this video of me breaking down these election results. If you did enjoy this video, any support you can give to it, I will greatly appreciate. Obviously, this video, without me even really meaning to, linked a lot into my last video on electoral reform, because if you look at these results, there's an obvious need for electoral reform. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching. I will, in the future, break down other election results that happen. I'll create a playlist, so if you're watching this in the future and you want to see other videos where I break down election results, there will be a playlist. But thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.